Welcome back to AI 575 with Aero. This is Ace Run Classic. Using the Glide Roll Ballista Pro off the tee here. Sometimes I'll use the Glide Skip Ballista Pro, sometimes the Light Glide Ballista Pro, sometimes the Glide Wind Ballista, sometimes even the Glide Wind Recoil or Accurate Glide Musket. It really is highly wind dependent on this. And I like ending up in this area here because even if I end up behind that bush to the right of where I just threw, I can usually account for the collision and still make it in the basket. And if I wind up behind one of those trees, I can usually just kind of slide around them. So here my aim point is the bottom of the top arrow again. I'm gonna, oh, and I decide that's right because of the two tailwind. So here my aim point is the top of the middle arrow. There's like some leaves on that tree in the distance in the far right on the edge of the cliff there. If you get it right in this pocket, you can kind of sneak it just across. I got super lucky on this roll. I totally forgot about it. I totally forgot about it. Look at this roll. Oh my god, that's so lucky. But usually, if you get it in that pocket, you can end up in a similar spot. But that was just ridiculously lucky. But if you have like a 3 tailwind, I'll usually try to go to the right of that pair of trees that I went into the left of. With a 4 tailwind, I actually try to hit the hill on the way over. So again, kind of a wind dependent. If I don't have a tailwind there, or only a 1 tailwind, which I'm not super comfortable with, then I'll switch to the Glide Roll Ballista Pro and take a roller drive instead on that last one. So here, this is just a Glide Wind Recoil, full send off the tee. I like this shot for pretty much most like 1 or 2 winds. Once you start getting into 3 or 4 winds, I might disc up to a roll glide and hope for the kind of sticky action on the ground there. For KP4, my aim point here with a left to right crosswind of what it is like a split disc anhyzer. And I'm really trying to hug this left OB line, especially if you're doing something like Ace Run Classic or Salmiakki Cup. I think it's relatively easy to grind kind of 1 through 4 here. So trying to hug that line and give myself something of an eagle look, which I kind of took a shot at here, but I don't think the accurate glide is enough from 300 feet. You got to get a little closer for that to be viable. But I mean, anytime you can get a birdie on KP4, I think you're feeling pretty good. The eagle really is like a bonus. It's like getting an ace. So here, with this 2 wind at like 8 o'clock, slider all the way to the left. My aim point's the bottom of the bottom arrow, right at the kind of bottom of the tree. And then sometimes you can sneak through on the left side of that column, but this is definitely the safe play. You end up with like 60, 70 feet. And as long as you don't use the wrong musket, you shouldn't go into that lake in the distance. Pond, more of a pond. 60 feet there, too high in the chains. I was worried I was going to get a chain out there, and fortunately it stuck, so that worked out for me. With this 2 wind, I know Orange Pie says he'll pretty much only go for this if he's got the ideal wind, and I think I was taking his advice here. So I use the Glide Wind Recoil. I think he might use like the Accurate Glide Musket on that shot. But if you use the Recoil and you get a nice, nice play there, you have a look. So I decided, I was like, you know what? It's a 2 headwind, and I'm using, what is the Accurate Wind? Yeah, that's right. So I disc up to the Accurate Windbreak River, and I'm thinking, YOLO, I'm just gonna run this. And partially because of the headwind, I'm thinking if I miss the basket, as long as I don't get like skip off of the side of the cage, then I should be able to avoid OB. I'm thinking if I like hit the top band or even miss metal entirely, I'll probably hit the back like ramp and not go OB. And instead I nail it, 225 feet. I was ecstatic after that. So here, pretty consistent aim point. Even in this wind, I'll go slider all the way to the left, bottom of the top green arrow on the crest of that little hill, and there's like a bush there in between 2 trees. And then I'm doing a almost full disc anhyzer. I like, if you can get on the left side of that bush, it might even be a slightly better drive, because with a bit of a tailwind, you can end up in that hazard that I'm right behind right now. But this is pretty ideal drive. And fortunately, I didn't really bring the left OB into play at all. So now I'm here, I'm just deciding like which disc do I want to use. I decide for the Roll Glide Ballista Pro, and I'm kind of like the bottom of the bottom arrow, right on the edge of the, I don't know, horizon of the ground. It's a weird phrase. And, oh, and it just sticks. I couldn't remember. I was like, oh man, did I get a hazard there? I remember thinking, I was like, oh my gosh, did I just get a hazard right there? And ends up with 34 feet left, and I was like, yeah, that ended up being pretty good, but it was pretty close to dangerous. So I might disc up on that next time. Okay, with the 2 crosswind at 9 o'clock, aim point here is the bottom of the bottom green arrow. I'm kind of on a horizontal line. There's like with a line of the mountains on the background. I think that's what I use, yeah. And then I'm doing a full power split disc hyzer on this forehand. And do I just, oh my gosh, I just sneak it across. So this is what I'm always kind of tweaking with, because if you go to the left side of the basket on that drive, you're almost certainly going to go swimming, or at least OB, even if you do manage to hug the side of the thing. So you want to get in between these latitude 64 sideline bumper things. What are those called? Maybe someone can weigh in and tell me what those are called. But you want to get in between that and the basket to ideally with the accurate windbreak musket if you're going to do that line. You can ace run it with either the accurate windbreak musket. Yeah, I think the accurate windbreak musket is the ace run. But if you miss the ace, like, you know, if you could run it multiple times in a daily, you're probably going to go out OB. But that's one I'm constantly tweaking with. There's another one I'm constantly tweaking with. What I like best, though, I find, is the accurate glide musket. So here with this one wind, I'm using the bottom of the top green arrow, and I'm perching it right on the side, like I'm nestling it inside of the bush. So if it's a 4 wind, I'll go higher. I'm just trying to think of, or maybe it's lower. Yeah, so I'm using the bottom of the middle arrow at the bottom of the bush, I think is my aim point right here with this wind. Maybe on some other videos on this hole on KP9, I can show, but I'm always in a vertical line with that bush, because I find that you can either make it, like, just squeak it through this passage, or end up just behind these this big this half square, the Mando. You can get right behind the Mando. It's like my terms. So anyway, 13 down on Kehoe Park. That's a great start for this tournament. So now I'm just hoping I can run all 7 eagles on Oak Hill and keep this going. Tournament record at the time that I was recording this was 42 down on Ace Run Classic. So here my aim point is the top of the top arrow. It's like just over this hill that I squeak past, and I love this line. As long as you don't hit that first tree, you're probably going to end up in a pretty good spot for an eagle look here. In this case, a very good look. In some winds, like I think a 2 or a 3 cross tailwind, like left to right, so like maybe like a 130 wind, or like a 2 o'clock wind, you can actually albatross run that. I haven't hit it yet, but I've come extremely close. Here in this, anytime you get a tailwind on this, I think it's a more dangerous ace run. But I'm trying to maximize, all of my tournament scores here. So I'm going to take the high hyzer line. Aim point is the bottom of the bottom arrow. There's like a rogue branch sticking out of that tree, and I line it up like right at the edge of that branch. And then I'm doing a not quite full power, especially because of the tailwind, with this accurate windbreak musket and trying to get the right amount. Hyzer in just a little bit too much anhyzer, because I didn't get any fade on that really. But with the collision, it leaves me with a safe comeback or 55 feet. It's pretty routine here. Yeah, so I think if you get 13 on Kehoe Park, and you can, which is very difficult to do, but basically that's, you're getting the albatross on 2, and you're getting both eagles on 6 and 7, and then birding out the rest, which I've only done a few times. And you can pull off the 16 on Oak Hill. That's your best shot. Of course, of maximizing this tournament. So here I'm doing a full sound with the Glide Skip Ballista Pro. I think I was doing a split disc anhyzer to counter the wind. And yeah, as long as you end up within 100 feet here, I think that's pretty reasonable for the eagle look. But depending on the drive, you can get within like 60 to 80 feet. Really is just wind dependent. And the Glide Skip Ballista Pro, this is one of those holes that, because of its just sheer distance, that's one where this disc helps a lot. So sorry, Rusty. You'll get yours one day, buddy. Especially now that I'm, Ace Ventura disc detective. Maybe that will help. Here my line is the bottom of the middle arrow. It's on the right bottom edge of the tree. And then full, anhyzer to pull off the roll there. And considerations on this drive, I'm mostly trying to not end up too high on that hill, nor do this curve to the right too early. So that's what I'm messing with in that camera pan, why I don't just send it right away. I'm kind of trying to tweak the specifics on the disc before I release it. And I'm always going for like optimal repeatability when I'm playing these. So on the 72-foot throw-in, I'm kind of treating it like an 80-foot throw-in because of the wind that's here. But really just playing the camera pan, and that's what I mean about I'm looking for always a specific spot that I don't mind taking my time with in order to try to make sure I'm doing the same or very similar thing each time on every throw-in. So here with this 3 wind at 930, I'm using the bottom of the bottom green arrow. There's like a little window in the tree where there's no branches. You can kind of see it. And that's like one of my aim spots for this wind, and this works out just great. The glide wind Ballista, it's not going to overshoot the basket too far. It doesn't really bring in OB into play, so I prefer that over, say, like a Light Glide Ballista Pro in this scenario. Moving on to Oak Hill 6. With this wind, I don't adjust the initial aim point at all. Accurate windbreak musket, not quite full power. It's about the width of the second Wi-Fi curve, below the second Wi-Fi curve. Maybe a little less than that, like if you like have the width of the Wi-Fi curve, but I'm not quite touching the second Wi-Fi curve, and that seems to be enough to get right up to the edge of the water. And that's right. Once in a while, you'll get bad ground action, and that's an example of getting bad ground action and going too far. And then the trick is, like, if I go a little bit less power than that, then oftentimes I'll end up with like a 140-foot throw-in, which is way harder than, say, the 110 or 120-foot throw-in that I can get if I'm flirting with the water's edge. So I remember, even now, I'm just so crushed that happened. Because if I just ended right there on the water's edge, I probably would have gotten that eagle. So, bummer. Anyway, with this 3 wind, I think I tend to prefer the accurate glide musket. Bottom of the bottom arrow on the left side on a horizontal line with the bottom of the rock. And then I did like I think it was either split or full disc anhyzer to get, I want that hitting the ground so that it can kind of like negate the effect of this powerful tailwind and leave me with a manageable comebacker, especially, again, still in the 3 wind. This one, on this wind, especially if you're using like a recoil or definitely a Ballista, you can just massively overshoot the basket and have an incredibly difficult comebacker here. So that's something to mess around with on this hole, especially in that tailwind scenario. On Oak Hill 8, my play in this left to right wind is the bottom of the top arrow is nestled on the crest of the hill on a vertical line with the tree on the second hill. And then I'm doing a full send split disc anhyzer with the Glide Skip Ballista Pro. Even if I clip that tree to my right, I usually will get a decent bounce up the hill and still have like maybe an 80-foot look for eagle. Maybe something like 90s, but ultimately manageable. So I like that line, and it pretty much takes the OB on the left side out of play, or as well as like ending up like too far down to the left side of the hill there, which is I was commonly doing until I kind of figured out that line. Here, slider all the way to the left, bottom of the bottom arrows on a horizontal line with the red arrow on the Mando sign, and then I'm doing like splitting the distance between the left side of the disc and the left side of the Wi-Fi curves. That's like the amount of hyzer that I'm using for that shot, and then routine putt. So I mean, pretty good overall. I only really made the one mistake on Oak Hill 6, and it was a mini mistake. So really only realistically one stroke that could have been made there. I get lucky here by having the albatross opportunity with KP2, but then also with having this 3 tailwind at my back as well. So here I'll go for the shot that I'm saying. What I try to do is end up on the right side of, there's some trees. I do like a full disc anhyzer Glide Skip Ballista Pro. And I'm trying to, I wonder if I do actually pull it off this time. There's a specific, yeah, I think I do. I like to go to the right of those 2 trees. So I bounce off this hill between those trees, and then that usually leaves me with like a 60 to 80 foot look for the albatross. In this case, 70 feet. I was feeling awesome about that. I mean, and as long as you get in bounds, even if you miss the albatross look and you secure eagle, that's pretty good, especially for this this 3rd layout. So I mean, this could not have been a more ideal setup. Did I hit this, or I feel like I leave this short? Even just looking at it, I feel like I'm about to hit cage right now. I can't remember if I stick this or not. So I'm taking my time with the camera pan. These are kind of tricky in these tailwinds. Sometimes you get, okay, great. Yeah. Woohoo! Retroactively awesome still. Okay, so I mean, I was feeling really good. 13 on Kehoe Park, 15 on Oak Hill, and get the albatross right away. And then, oh yeah, that's right. And then this horrible wind. You can use the roller as a solution for this shot, but it had been a long time since I'd even seen this wind. And you can see me, I'm kind of considering like, do I want to use a roller? But the thing is with the roller, if you don't get the right angle on it, you can easily go OB left. And if you mess up the angle, you can also go just way far to the right. So I decided I'm aiming at this bush on this line, and I'm not gonna do any hyzer and hyzer, just full, like straight pull back. And right there, I'm thinking with the headwind, I'm not gonna get pushed enough to the left. If it was a true, like a 9 o'clock wind instead of like this 6:30 wind that I'm messing with, God, and the wind just like sucks all the power out of it. That was so deflating, especially after nailing that first albatross. So now I'm going like, this would be insane to go for it for 526 feet left. So I was thinking like, man, I mean, maybe I could try to skip it over the, bumpers with the Glide Skip Ballista Pro. So I'm kind of thinking about it here, and I'm thinking, no, man, this is not going to work. So I decided to disc way down, and then I'm trying to remember what this distance will be like what my relative distance is to the OB line, because I want to get as close to that OB line as possible without risking actually going out of bounds. So 526 feet. I remember if you're pretty much right up on the line, it's maybe like 225, 240 feet, something like that. So I did I think a full send with an accurate windbreak fuse, or maybe not quite full send. I didn't just see what I did there. But now with 266 feet to go, I was not happy with that sort of layup shot. I was too conservative with it. So if I'm in that spot again, that's really something I probably got to dial in through the practice function here. But now just two main considerations: don't hit the tree, and with this powerful forewind, don't end up going too far to the left. I'm not really worried with the accurate windbreak river of going long. I was thinking it was probably going to hug the ground, and I was also not worried about not getting across that with the wind. So it was more just don't hit the tree and don't go too far to the left. Yeah, still salty about that par. Oh well. With this one wind, I guess I end up doing I just kind of lower it down and a little bit to the left. Aim point is the bottom of the bottom arrow on like a horizontal line with the bottom of the tree to my left. And then I'm doing a full send with the Light Glide Ballista Pro. Main thing here is just stay out of the hazard. If you're anywhere except the hazard, then you have a much better chance of saving birdie. So that's the one consideration. Whatever shot you're trying here, err on the side of not ending in the sand. Not happy to see Blueberry 9 because, I mean, it's probably, in my opinion, it's the most difficult par 3 to ace in Blueberry. And I'm also not stoked about seeing Blueberry at all, because even if I do get the Blueberry 3, it's just going to be tough to. I'm thinking, oh man, this is going to be. I'm not going to have. Maybe I get one par 4 in this batch of 3. Probably I get only par 3s. So, not happy about that. And then we're moving along to this one. I'm feeling better about because at least I can ace run it. But I'm still gonna just shaking my head like, why'd I get Blueberry? That's so unlucky. Why'd I get Blueberry? Whatever. Bottom of the bottom arrows at the bottom of the bubble. Accurate windbreak river. And with this one wind, sometimes it's gonna push it too far to the right. But if I try to counter it with the right amount of hyzer, just a touch, then it's like the wind doesn't affect it at all. So it's really touchy, and I am just below the second Wi-Fi curve there. And in this case, you could see it pushes it too far to the right, and I was like, man, but my power level was probably pretty good there. So if I had tweaked the line just right and played the camera pan, it might have had a good chance. So, I mean, I was feeling much better about that than the almost like automatic birdie on the last one. Then this one, I'm happy to see. If I'm not going to get the par 4, this is probably the best chance you have at hitting an ace on Blueberry. With the 3 wind, I'm bottom of the middle arrow at the bottom of the pin, maybe just a little bit to the right to it. And I think if I remember, I missed this to the right. Yeah, but lately what I've been doing is aiming it right at the bottom of the pin, the bottom of the middle arrow at the bottom of the pin. And then I've been missing wide left. So I try to kind of counter that a little bit. And I try to kind of just keep a running list of little mental notes like that. Like, well, last time I was in this position, this was the outcome. And did I? Oh man, yeah, I spiked that. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, always feels good to, I mean, that feels like the equivalent of like negating the fact that I didn't get Blueberry 3 in that bad batch. So here I'm like, okay, cool, windswept, like please give me all 3 par 4s. That'd be great. I love this tailwind. So I'm doing a not quite full power with the Roll Glide Ballista Pro and split disc anhyzer. And I think I can't remember if I tried to actually give this a run knowing that I had that backdrop. Yeah, I guess I tried to give that a run. I had the power level kind of alright, and then I remember when it started rolling, I was like, don't you do this. Don't you dare roll into the water. I was like, save it for another time. Yeah, really just hoping like, come on, give me the par 4s, give me the par 4s. So then I do get one, and I'm like, oh, be a good wind. And then I was like, oh man, I have not seen this wind before. So now in this wind, this like 10 o'clock 5 wind, I think the play here is to use the glide wind recoil. Because any ballistas that I've tried in this tailwind, and maybe you can aim further to the right and kind of, or just put more adequate anhyzer on it. But in this case, I'm not aimed far enough to the right, and I only put like a split disc, not even quite split disc. So I just go way to the left, and I was like, oh man, I messed this up, so now I have a downhill 107-foot shot, with this 5 wind, and I'm thinking I should just lay this up. I should just lay this up and save birdie, guarantee the birdie. But I'm thinking, no, I can make this. I can make this. Another part of me is like, go for the gold. So I decide to go for it. And whenever I go for it in situations like this, a couple things that I'm considering. There's like 2 bushes in the background and a rock. So bad ground action can leave me behind either bush, and or I could get like a bad skip off the rock. So what I'm trying to do is err on the side of hitting the actual chains or the cage / pin on the bottom, but not the top band. Because if I get a bad skip like off the top of the top band, or I sail over the basket, that's gonna leave me with the way harder comebacker. So I'm trying to err on the side of undershooting this, but I couldn't remember like the right distance gauge here. I'm trying to treat this like an 80-foot shot, and I think I probably needed to treat it more like a 75, maybe even 70-foot shot, because I think I get too much lift, and there I am right off the top of the band, and then you can see I'm behind this bush, and now I'm like, oh my goodness, like, so now I'm wondering, like, am I gonna get collision with the bush, but the wind is pushing it left to right, you know, just kind of a disaster. So I'm treating it now like it's about a 45, 50-foot shot. In a 3 wind, probably I'd want to put about 50 foot of power on it. In this 5 wind, the main thing was I wasn't even, and I just get pushed out to the right. That's so sad to watch again. I just hate it. I was like, so now I'm like, after a really good Keho Park run and a pretty strong Oak Hill run, that's 3 strokes on the table just between those 2 holes, just between Keho Park 2, or no, Keho Park 4, and windswept 2 right there. And then pretty routine in this wind with the accurate windbreak Musket to close this out. But I'm kind of just kicking myself. I'm like, oh man, those 2 holes, if I had gotten a little luckier on the wind on KP4 and hadn't messed up windswept 2, I might have been able to tie the tournament record. But 39 down, I think that's like the 4th best score on this tournament. So I'll try to improve upon that and post that for you guys after I'm done knocking out all the tournaments. But thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you next time.